Yeah, we can see.
Right. Sorry, give me 1 moment. Yeah. All right. Very good evening to everyone.
Very good evening, sir.
Um, all right. So we are here today to talk about how do we measure and forecast ROI for any programs and initiatives. The idea here is that this session would help you know and understand what are the different levels of outcome information that you get from any program, and how do you use it to your benefits and advantages, and how do you increase funding for your programs and projects. Uh, to tell you about myself and what we do, we are ROI Institute India. We are the India partners for ROI Institute. Okay? ROI Institute is a venture between ROI Institute US and Sarosh Consulting. And we started off operations about 4 years ago in India with a vision to help organizations measure the success of projects and programs and maximize their financial returns on investment. Like I said, we are the India partners for ROI Institute, and ROI Institute has been uh, in presence since 1992. It's been over 30 years since they have been in operations, and they have been working worldwide to help organizations measure the success of their programs and also measure the financial returns on investment. Um, ROI Institute has its presence in over 70 countries and is supported by over 100 ROI consultants. Over 9,000 organizations worldwide have chosen the ROI methodology. Here's a list of some of the top organizations that have applied the ROI methodology to showcase what's the value that their programs are delivering. Okay. We have over 17,000 global graduates of the ROI certification that use the ROI methodology in their day-to-day lives when they work with different programs and projects. Okay. Now, these are 17,000 global graduates of the ROI certification program that we have. Okay. We've trained close to about 35,000 individuals on the ROI methodology itself, because we run different kinds of programs and initiatives on the ROI methodology. Okay. Certification is just one bit of it. To introduce myself, I am Hormuz Mistry. I am the founder and CEO for Sarosh Consulting and ROI Institute India. I have over 2 decades of work experiences, actually about 22 years plus of work experience, all of which has been with learning and development. Okay. I've worked with corporates for about good 16 years, okay, where I started off as a part-time trainer, and eventually in my last role, I was leading the learning and development function for an entire business unit for an organization. Okay. I moved to consulting in 2019, and in 2020, I partnered with the ROI Institute to bring ROI methodology and the ROI Institute to India. Uh, so for today, okay, uh, I've set out a few objectives for this session today that we have. Okay. What I believe the participants, that's each one of you present here, should be able to do today after the 90 minutes that we have. And I'm not sure if we'll have the entire 90 minutes because we started late. But I'll try and see that we don't go over time by a lot. So today you should be, by the end of the session that we have, you should be able to identify what are the 5 different levels of outcomes for any programs or initiatives. What are the different types of data that executives like to see? Understand how to achieve business alignment for any initiative. Understand how you could write program objectives. Okay? And then you should be able to list 3 ways to make reaction data more executive friendly. And finally, we should be able to describe how an ROI forecast is developed. Okay. There are, as we work with different programs, projects, and initiatives, Okay? We've seen that a lot of times learning and development professionals, HR professionals, they all come across certain performance challenges. And these are a lot of common performance challenges that we have seen with different professionals, different organizations, and so on. Now, what I would like you to do is tell in the chat box, tell me whether the challenges that I list, whether they are true or false, whether you've experienced them or not. Right? The first challenge is that most of learning and development is wasted. Do you believe this is true, or has your experience been any different? Sundar says it's false. Wonderful. Ranjani says it's true at times. Sujit says no. Preeti says no. Wonderful. Full for John says it's false. Anand says it's false. Satish says it's true most of the times. Victor Vijay says if the TNI is not done, then it's true. Sunita says it's true. Hemant says it's false. Wonderful. Different experiences that we all have around learning and development, right? Okay, let's look at the next one, okay, which is program outcomes desired by executives in client organizations are rarely measured. What's your experience with this? Is it true or is it false? Anand says it's true. Divya says it's true. Preeti says it's true. 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 Victor Vijay says it's false. True. All right. Wonderful. Let's look at the next one. Most providers do not have data showing that they make a difference in the organization. Do you think that's true or false? Sunita says it's true. Divya, Anand, Hemant, Kalyani, everyone says it's true. Preeti says true most of the times. Satish says false, but it's not measures. Nowadays, true, past, false. Wonderful. Okay. The next one. Most executives see learning as a cost and not an investment. Anand says true. Says it's true. 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 Partly true. Divya is absolutely true. Preeti says no comments. All right. And the last one. Most executives view hard skills more valuable than soft skills. Nita says it's true. 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 Divya says it's yes, but it's changing. Pawan says it's often true. Right. So these are most of the performance challenges that we come across. When individuals talk about measuring the ROI and measuring the impact of their programs, these are the most common challenges that we often come across that people face. Okay? And why are these challenges that they're coming across? And let me talk about that. Okay? Now, what do these executives and CEOs want to see? When we start, sorry, does someone have a question? No? All right, wonderful. Next. So when in collaboration with the Association of Talent Development, we did a research with about over 160, 140 odd CEOs, of which we got responses, complete valid responses from about 96 CEOs from different Fortune 500 companies. Okay? We asked them about different measures for each program or project that happens. Okay? And we asked them in terms of inputs and indicators for any program or initiative. Okay? Do they currently measure it? 94% of the CEOs said that they do. We also asked them, is it important for you to measure it? Okay? And only 86% of them said that it was important for them to measure, even though 94% of them said that they were measuring. Yeah. The importance column, just ignore it for the moment. I will come to it at the end. Okay. When we asked them about efficiency of programs and initiatives, 78% of them said that the efficiency of a program or initiative is being currently measured. Okay. Whereas against an 82% who said that it should be measured. When we talked about reaction of a program or an initiative, 53% of them said that it's currently being measured, whereas 22% only wanted it to be measured. When we spoke about learning, there's a 32% of them said that it was being measured versus a 28% who said that it was very important for them to measure it. Okay. When it came to application, they said that only 11% of them were receiving data around measurement of application, whereas 61% said that it should be measured and they would like to see that data. When we talk about impact, we're talking about the business impact that a program or an initiative delivers. Okay? Only 8% of the CEOs said that they were receiving impact information for the programs and initiatives, whereas 96% of them said that they would like to see it. Finally, when it came to ROI, only 4% of them were seeing or were being shown what's the ROI of a program or an initiative, whereas 74% of them wanted to see that information. And finally, when it came to awards and recognition and so on, 40% of them said that it was being measured versus 44% who said that they would like to see it. When we asked them to rank the importance of each of these measures, the CEO said that getting to know what the impact of a program or an initiative was the topmost priority for them, followed by getting to know what's the ROI of a program or an initiative, followed by rewards, then application, learning, inputs, efficiency, and reaction. This is what we learned when we asked the CEOs in terms of what is it that they wanted to see as data for the different programs or initiatives that were being run within their organization. And because they don't see the impact and ROI data very often, okay, they very often look at these programs as costs and not as an investment. Now, what happens when they look at it as a cost? When executives perceive a program to be a cost, okay, they will always want to control it, they will want to reduce it, and then they will want to eliminate the cost. And the moment they start trying to control, reduce, and eliminate the cost, what happens is that partnerships between your senior executives and the learning functions become rare. Okay? The influence that the learning functions or the HR functions have, that influence diminishes, the support is lost, and funding is curtailed. And that's one of the reasons why, when you see that organizations go through a downturn, or the industry goes through a downturn, and when cost needs to be controlled, the first reduction in cost that you see that happens is for learning programs. Because the executives see it as a cost and not as an investment. Now, if they were to start perceiving it as an investment, what would happen? Okay? The moment they see it as an investment, they want to maintain the investment because that investment gives them a return. They want to enhance the returns that come out of the investment, and they want to protect their investments. And as a result of that, you have better business partnerships. Right? The relationships with your clients, with your internal stakeholders, with your C-suite executives, they start improving. And you automatically start earning a seat at the table, and you get funding for your programs and projects. So where does the ROI methodology fit into this? With the ROI methodology, we have something called as the chain of impact. The chain of impact talks about different types of data that are attached with any program or an initiative. We also call it the value chain because as we keep going through the different stages of a program or a project, the kind of data that comes from each stage becomes more valuable. Okay? And that's also one of the reasons. Sorry, I'll get to one of the reasons in a moment, but that's also one of the reasons why we call it as the chain of impact. Okay? Because it's as it if the chain breaks at any of these stages, the impact that you want to derive from the program or a project is lost. Now, the different stages that we have, let me take you through those. Okay? The different levels of evaluation that we have. Okay? At level 0, we have something called as inputs and indicators. These inputs and indicators are input in terms of your scope, number of people, volume, efficiencies, costs for a program. And what we typically measure here is we measure the number of participants who are in the program, the duration of the program, the timing of the program, the cost for the program, and so on. These are your inputs to the program. And that's the reason why it is listed at a level 0. Your outputs for the program start from a level 1. Level 1 is where we measure reaction and planned action. This essentially measures the amount of satisfaction, the amount of importance participant gives to the program, and also captures any planned actions that they intend to take based out of the learnings from the program or based on the program itself. Okay? Now, this is where we typically measure how much relevant did the participants find the program? How important was it for them? Did they find it useful? Do they intend to use the content from the program? Was it appropriate for them? Okay? What are the actions that they intend to take from? These are different measures that we capture and we try and rate it to see how successful the program would be based on their reactions. At level 2, we measure learning and confidence. Okay? This is where we actually measure changes in knowledge, skills, attitudes, behaviors, and so on. And the typical measures that we check over here are your skills, knowledge, capacity, competencies, confidence, contacts, and any other thing relevant based on what they needed to learn from the program. Now, once participants have learned what they were expected to learn, we then measure how much of what they have learned is being applied and implemented by them. Right? This is where we measure their actual change in behavior and actions. This is where we measure what's the extent to which they are using what they have learned from the program or a project. Right? How many tasks are they completing? What's the frequency of use for it? Okay? What's the success that they have with the use of what they have learned? It is here that we also measure what are the barriers to using or applying what they have learned. What are the enablers to implementing what they have? Because these barriers and enablers are going to tell us what's the impact that the program or the project is going to have. Finally, at the next level, we measure what's the business impact for the program or the project. This is where we check how much of impact did the program have on business measures like productivity, cost, quality, time, revenue, efficiency, employee satisfaction, customer engagement, customer satisfaction, so on and so forth. Right? And finally, we measure the ROI where we compare the program or project benefits to the cost. This is generally measured as either as a benefit to cost ratio or an ROI percentage or as a payback period. Right? That's the evaluation framework that the ROI methodology brings, and it helps us calculate the different variables that come out of a program or a project and help us showcase it to your senior executives, the stakeholders, the CEOs of the organization, to show what's the impact that the program is that we are delivering has for the organization. Now, how do we do it? Okay. We have a process model which gives us 12 different steps divided into 4 different stages. Right? It starts with evaluation planning, where we start off by aligning your program with the business. Okay? We start with the why. We identify why the program is required, and we align it to the business. Okay? We then move on to step 2, where we select the right solution. Okay? And then we go on for planning for results, where we expect success with what we are delivering. And as we start expecting success, we start planning on how is it that we are going to collect all of this data. And you'll notice that plan for results is right in the middle of stage 1 and stage 2. And that's because this just does not end the moment we have identified the right solution. It's an ongoing process that continues as we keep collecting data for the various different levels. Once all of the data is collected, we work at isolating the effects of the program. This is where we are identifying how much of impact did the program or the project have on the business measures. Now remember, any program, while it will have an impact on the outcomes and the business measures, there are several other factors that also influence the outcomes. And for us to be able to say with the thumb on the table that this is the amount of impact that the program or the project had on the outcome, okay, it is very important for us that we isolate the effects of the program. Once we do that, we then convert data into monetary values. As we convert data into monetary values, we also tabulate the cost of the program. We take these monetary benefits divided by the cost to calculate the ROI of the program. And while we calculate the ROI, if there are any measures that we haven't converted into monetary values, or we are unable to convert it to monetary values, we then list those out as intangible benefits coming out of a program or project. Now, our process just doesn't end here as once we've done calculating. We also ensure that we communicate the results to key stakeholders. Okay? And we also recommend using something called as the black box thinking to increase funding for future programs or projects. The black box thinking comes out from a design thinking principle, which recommends that you track every single activity that you would have done, track all the data in a central place so that you can use it for future purposes, for your future programs, projects, or even to get more funding for this particular program if it needs to be implemented again. Do we have any questions so far? Let me take a quick pause here before we proceed further.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Mistry. So these data and inputs collection, are they applicable only for tangible training concepts like sales and marketing, or can we apply it to other simpler modules like communication? Or, for example, I take trainings for college students on interview skills or campus to corporate modules, right? Email etiquettes and other things. Will we be able to apply it to those trainings also?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The beauty of this model is that it is applicable to all kinds of programs and projects. The ROI methodology has been used across various different verticals. This is not just something that is used for L&D and HR. It's also used for marketing, advertising, sales, technology projects and initiatives, and so on. Okay? So it's applicable across any kind of program or project. Okay? Coming very specifically to learning and development, within the scope of learning and development, any kind of program or initiative that you can think of, okay, the ROI methodology can be applied. More tangible ones, like you said, sales or technical programs or projects, yes. For your behavioral improvement programs, for your leadership development programs, any kind of program that you can think of, we've applied this particular process model and helped professionals measure the impact and ROI.
Okay, sure. So I will try applying it. So I have never done this. So far in my trainings, this is ROI is something I have never done. Because
Right.
colleges generally don't ask for it. They are just
True.
calling us to come and conduct the session for their students. They have this not arisen so far. So I
Right.
will try doing it and
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Right. Uh, all right. Let me proceed further, okay, and take you just through the first step of it, of the 12-step process model that we have. Okay. And we start off with the first step, which is aligning your programs with the business. Right. To align your programs with the business, we have something called as the program alignment, or the V model. Okay. With the V model, what we do is we start off by identifying what are the payoff needs for a program or a project. We then go ahead to identify what are the business needs related to that program or project. Once we've identified the business needs, we then look at what performance will have to change for this business need to be met. Once we've identified what performance needs to change, we then go ahead and identify what will participants need to learn for that performance to change. Once we've identified what the participants need to learn, we then go ahead and identify how or what would the participants prefer to learn. And finally, we then identify what are the inputs for the program, process, or initiative. The first two, which is your payoff needs and your business needs, helps you identify the why for the program. It helps you know and understand why are we doing this particular program or a project. Okay. Yes, Sunita, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. Could you just elaborate the payoff needs again? I'm sorry, I was a little
No problem.
distracted.
No problem. With the payoff needs, what we're trying to identify is what is the payoff that we are looking at achieving from this program or a project. Okay? What's the return or what's the ROI that you are looking at achieving from this program? That's what we recommend that we start off with as we start looking at designing a program or aligning your program to the business.
So basically what we expect to in monetary terms.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. What's the return that we expect to achieve or that we want to achieve?
Okay.
Right? Now, to get that kind of a return, what's the business parameter or metric that will have to change? Right? And that helps us identify why we are doing that program or project. Is it really necessary? Is it really important to do that program or project? Right? What would happen if we don't do it?
So sorry for being so dense. So the
No.
business needs, we are talking about ours, not the clients.
No, it's the business need for the program or the project. Sorry.
Okay.
So whatever program or project we are initiating,
Right.
okay, why are we doing it?
Okay.
Okay. What's the return on investment that we are expecting from that program or project? Okay. If you're delivering a program or a project for the client, and the client is paying you for it, what's the payoff that they expect to achieve out?
All right. So if we could take, I'm so sorry to be taking this much of time, but I just want to understand this. So supposedly I'm giving a stress management session.
Right.
So if we take it from that, so the payoff needs would be my remuneration or the returns that I want, and the business need would be what in this particular case?
Sorry, no. So if you are delivering a stress management session, okay,
yeah,
you are going to charge your client for it.
Right.
Correct. So what's the payoff that the client expects to achieve from what they are paying you?
Right. Okay. So this is from the clients, from my client's perspective that I
From
need
the
to.
program perspective.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So the cost is associated to the program.
Right.
Right. That's what we are looking at. So what's the payoff that that program needs to deliver? Right. We're delivering the program for the client. So what's the payoff that it needs to deliver for them? Okay. And then we look at what's the business need that we are around.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So that gives us the initial why for the program. And the rest of it is your initial analysis for the program or the project. A lot of times you will notice that a lot of organizations, a lot of programs, projects take the bottom-up approach. They will start with saying, okay, these 25 people need to be trained on time management. Right? How it needs to be done? Classroom training, 8-hour session. Everybody needs to learn about time management. And then when they are asked to showcase what's the ROI, what's the business impact, they aren't able to showcase it because there is no alignment that is happening. Okay? We don't know what's the outcome that the time management program needed to deliver. Now, as we start doing this, the next thing that we need to do is start writing objectives for each of these levels. As we've identified what's the payoff need that an organization, or what the program needs to deliver, we start writing what's the ROI objective that we want to achieve from the program or the project. As we identify the business need, we start writing what's the impact objective. Once we identified the performance needs, we identify what are the application objectives for that particular program or project. And once we identified learning needs, we write up the learning objectives for the program. As we identify what are the preference needs, we write the reaction objectives. And once we've known the input, we write the input objectives for the program or the project. Okay? Not having these is one of the major reasons why a lot of programs fail when it starts or when it gets to the point where it needs to be evaluated. Because we don't know what we are driving with these programs. We don't know what the goals that we're trying to achieve. You will notice that a lot of learning programs have beautifully crafted smart learning objectives. And then you will notice that the programs fail because they have never been applied. They've never been applied because there never were any application objectives written for the program. Now, what do we write up with each of these objectives? Let's look at that. As you start developing objectives for each of these levels, for level 1 objective, it helps you define the measures that are expected as a reaction to the program. Something that is revealed and communicated to the stakeholders. What are the reactions that your program needs to deliver, and what is it that we are going to communicate to the stakeholders? Your level 2 gives you your learning objectives. We all are learning professionals. We all have developed smart learning objectives for our programs at one point of time or the other. And that's what we need to continue doing. At level 3, our smart application objectives define specific measures that are taken that will define success with application and implementation of the project. Very specifically, what are we expecting the participants to do once they have learned what they're supposed to learn? How are they supposed to apply what they have learned? What are they supposed to do? What actions do they need to take? That helps you categorically define your application level objectives. Your level 4 impact objectives, they define specific business impact measures, or business measures that will be impacted as a result of the participants applying their learnings. You have your participants who've applied what they had learned. Now, what's the change in business measure that it will bring? And finally, you have your level 5 objectives that defines the minimum return on investment when you compare your program cost with the monetary benefits from the program. So now that it has created a positive impact on the business measures, what's the ROI for? That's what we measure from that. Yes, Victor, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes. I just wanted to confirm, as you are the owner of this entire program or this ROI formula as such, do you think this analytical information uh, is a trainer good enough skilled to collect this, or we need some specially skilled people to define these things?
So it depends. Okay, Vikram. It depends from individuals to individuals. It depends from organizations to organizations. How is it that they have defined their teams and what roles they have defined? Collecting all this data is a time-consuming process. Okay? I will not deny that. Okay? It requires certain level of analytical abilities as well.
That is exactly what was the reason for my question.
Right. Because if an individual possesses it, yeah, if they have that time bandwidth, yeah, if they have that capabilities, they can do it. If they don't have the time bandwidth and they don't have that capabilities, then probably the learning function should develop those capabilities within the team. Now, whether they choose to develop it with the trainer, the individual, or if they choose to develop it by hiring an additional analytical executive, that's their choice, right? So, for example, if I were to give you my own personal example, I do this by myself. Okay? I'm a trainer. I'm an ATD master trainer. I deliver trainings. Okay? And for my programs and projects, I collect the data, I analyze it, I showcase. Right? I did that when I was in my corporate roles as well. Okay? And that's the reason why I advocate this program. Okay? I hope that answers your question. Wonderful. All right. So 10 rules for objectives. Okay. The first is your objectives should be measurable and represent minimum acceptable performance. What we mean by that is that your objectives need to be SMART objectives. Okay. And I hope everyone here is aware of the SMART acronym. The second rule for objectives is the fewer objectives are better than having many objectives for a program or a project. Third one is that you always involve subject matter experts and key stakeholders as you develop these objectives and you get it signed off by them. Saying that these are the objectives that we are working with and these are the objectives that we will deliver as well. Okay. Fourth, you keep them relevant to the situation, program, and key stakeholders. Fifth, you create stretch objectives, but make sure that they are achievable. Sixth, you allow for flexibility to change as conditions change. Seventh one, failure is all right, but process improvement is the key. And that's the reason why we talked about measuring barriers and enablers to success as well. Okay. Always remember that your objectives are tools for progress and not weapons for performance reviews. Okay. The ninth being objectives should be time bound. Again, if your objectives are SMART, they'll automatically be time bound. And the last one being objectives provide us a focus for design, development, implementation, and evaluation. Right? All the elements of your ADDIE model. Right? I'd seen a hand go up. Does anyone have any questions at this moment?
Oh, yeah, Snehapal had put his hand up, and I just want to ask, like when you're saying must be measurable, I mean, because I have no clue of how you measure it. What I'm thinking is maybe you are having it like at a scale of 1 to 5 for certain things. I don't know. I'm asking you, how do you measure it? What is it? Because otherwise, this is just jargon for me right now.
Wonderful, Beena. Thank you. And may I request you to hold on to that thought for just a couple of minutes as I see what questions Nepal has, and I will get to the answer of your question right after that.
Okay.
Nepal, you had a question.
Harry, your session is fantastic. What you're sharing is awesome, amazing. Two things which has been always, my concern. One is about how do you exactly do the TNI, and second is the impact analysis. These are two areas which I'm very fond of. What I need to understand, the framework is fantastic. Can you share some example of that particular framework? Some figures.
Sure.
It will help me connect better. I would love to do it. In fact, this is an amazing session.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful. Okay.
I don't have words for that.
Let me go back a couple of slides.
Figures will be amazing. Like framework, prior to this.
Of course. See, the alignment model, I will give you an example of it. Just hold on to that thought as well.
Even the evaluation framework.
For the evaluation framework, if I have to give you an example for all of it, that's going to take at least a half a day session.
Okay.
But it's a much
show
longer.
Something for just about, say, 2-3 minute types.
What I could do is,
like.
What I could do is I could share a case study with everyone at the end of the session.
Okay.
That should give you an idea about how we go through all the 12 steps of the process.
Absolutely.
All right. And Snehpal, like I said, just hold on to your question for a while. For that program alignment, I will get to it in a minute. Okay. Now, before that, getting to Beena's question. Beena, you asked about how do we identify or how do we write smart objectives. Here are examples of 12 smart objectives that we have written for different programs or projects. What I would like you all to do is identify for which level these objectives have been written. I'll give you, say, about 3 minutes to do that, and then we shall talk about each one of them, each one of the 12.
Mr. Mistry, could you repeat the question? What you said?
So on your screen, you will see you have 12 objectives listed.
Okay.
Each of these objectives is written for a very specific level of evaluation. Right? You have your 5 levels. Level 1 is your reaction. Level 2 is learning. Level 3 is application. Level 4 is impact. And level 5 is ROI. These objectives, we talked about writing objectives for each of those levels. These objectives have been written for those levels. I'd like to see if you are able to identify for which level these objectives are written.
Shall we post it in the chats or?
No, just keep it with you. Just keep it with you.
Okay.
And we will discuss it.
Okay.
Say, for example, the first one should be 4.
The first one should be 4. That is correct.
It's an impact assessment.
It's an impact objective. Yes.
Even the second one is 4.
No. Second one could be 2. Sorry. Second one could be 3.
Application.
I think it is 3.
Application.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's give everyone some time to make a note of the responses, and we will look at each one of them.
And third one would be 2.
We'll get to it.
Fourth one is 4.
Fourth one is 1.
Fourth one is 1.
One is 1. I got 1.
Oh, yes. Feedback.
We all have been living our entire life in only 1.
1.
Yes.
Happy. My score is 4.89.
Yes.
So spread over 2 decades only in 4.9.
Yeah. I see a lot of trainers do that. Yeah. I see a lot of trainers do that. I see a lot of trainers take pride in it.
Developer.
I have reached the 4th level. But I have not reached the 5th level.
Wonderful.
This is the amount of time required to develop a proposal.
Where we are all trying to find clients who can make us reach that level. It also talks about our level of engagement in the business that we are going to get in future when we reach all those levels. Otherwise, only reaching level 1 is purely transactional training. Okay, a program here, can you do it? Okay, fine, thank you. And you never know that they are going to engage with you further or not. So going up to level 2 on level 1 only actually does not assure business for us also. If we want business continuity with the client, we need to go on to level 4, and I don't promise ROI. Up till now, I've never promised ROI, but Now, I was more interested in attending this session to understand if I have to, then client will be more interested. Why? Because we will answer that why question of theirs.
Right. If you are able to deliver a positive impact for your client, right? Calculating the ROI beyond that is just one additional step, which is converting your data into monetary values. Okay. All right, let's look at the responses that we have. Okay. The first one, like you all rightly pointed out, it is a level 4. The second one is a level 3. It's an application objective in terms of what will the participants apply and do. The third one is a level 2. The fourth one is a level 1. The fifth one is an impact objective, a level 4. The sixth one is a level 5. Seventh one is a level 1. Your eighth is a level 4. The ninth is a level 3. 10th one is a level 2. 11th is a level 3. The 12th is also a level 3. Any questions that you have around these objectives?
What's the ninth one?
Ninth one is a level 3.
Okay, thank you.
And number 2.
This is amazing. Just one thing I wanted to confirm. When Priya was mentioning that most of the times you're not in a position to reach to a higher level, my experience says that when you have a one-time intervention, usually you are able to reach only till second level, first and second. You don't go to the application level where they're doing it. That's my experience. But in long-term development programs, which I've been doing, there I'm able to reach to the third and fourth level.
Right.
Short-term interventions like 2 days you do and you are gone. Application, you are not aware that they are doing it or not.
Right. It all depends on how you're aligning your program. Okay? Is your program designed as a one-time intervention, or are you designing that one-time intervention with a thought about what's the business impact that it's going to deliver? Okay? Let me go back to this. Okay? How are you designing your program? It doesn't matter if it's a long-term journey or a one-time intervention. Is your program aligned to the business needs? Have you taken the top-to-bottom approach, or have you taken the bottom-up approach?
So
because no matter what kind of
level in short-term intervention also.
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you start identifying what's the impact that the program needs to deliver, whether it's a short-term program or a long-term program, we then are able to identify what is the performance change that needs to happen. And based on what performance change needs to happen, we then design what's the learning program going to be. And if you're learning
application, you will get to know only when you get to know that from the client.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay. So you will have an agreement beforehand that you will get those observations and all.
Yes. Yes.
You will create the application objectives firsthand.
Absolutely.
Then they can measure it from that.
Absolutely. You will have your application objectives, right? Your application objectives will say what they will apply once they have learned something.
Okay.
Right. And once we know whether we know the application objectives, then it's easy for us to measure whether it's being achieved or it's not being achieved.
Correct.
Irrespective of how long the duration of the intervention has been.
Yeah, I have a query here. Now, just setting objectives, application objective, how will it ensure? See, knowledge is one thing. Up to learning, we can achieve in the classroom that they have learned. But for that to transform into application, there has to be reinforcement also, no? So even if we put it on paper, unless that reinforcement is being done in absence of the trainer, that means by the manager or something like that, it may not translate into application.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah? And learning interventions aren't something that just occur in a classroom environment. Yeah? It goes beyond that. Right? And that's the reason why we always recommend that as you write the objectives for a program, we don't just write it up and keep it aside. We showcase and share all the objectives with the stakeholders. Now, in your program or a project, you will have multiple stakeholders, you will have different stakeholders. You may have your analysts, you will have your facilitators, you will have your manager or the significant others, you will have your program owners, the developers, designers, evaluators, sponsors, and so on. And depending on who the stakeholder is, we recommend that you share those objectives with each one of them. And Amit, to your point, as you share these application objectives with the managers, they are the ones who will ensure that the learning has been implemented or not, whether it's being applied or not. Because if they don't provide that environment for application and implementation, your program is not going to work. Okay. Vijay Priya, I see your hands raised. Give me a couple of minutes and I will pause for questions. Okay.
Sure.
Right. And that's why we recommend that you keep sharing those objectives with everyone so that there is enough support. And that is why at the application level, we also said we measure what are the barriers and enablers to success. If your manager is not providing the kind of environment that your participants need to apply the learning, they are the barriers. As we measure and evaluate all of that, we will be able to showcase saying, hey, a program has not achieved the objectives that it wanted to achieve because the participants did not receive the favorable environment. And that's what we recommend doing as we go on with the program alignment. Okay? As we start identifying the needs and we start writing up the objectives, we then also recommend that you start creating a plan for how you are going to evaluate. Okay? How are you going to measure reaction? How are you going to measure learning? How are you going to measure application? How are you going to measure impact? How are you going to measure ROI? Okay? And it is not just about how, it is also about writing up when we are going to do. Let me give everyone an example around this, and then I will pause for questions. Okay? Hopefully the example will help clarify a few things. Okay? So here's an example of a program, okay, for an organization where absenteeism was costing them $10,000 monthly. Okay? What they wanted to do was reduce unplanned absenteeism, which was currently at 9%, and bring it down to a benchmark of 5% or lower. Now, to bring down that unplanned absenteeism, okay, what they identified as change in performance was that there were discussions were not happening between team members and supervisors when there was an unplanned absenteeism. Okay? And that's the change in performance that they identified needed to happen. Those discussions needed to start happening. Now, for those discussions to happen, what would they need to know? They would need to know how to have those discussions, how to have those conversations. They needed to develop discussion or counseling skills. Right? And how would they prefer to learn it? They prefer to learn it if the counseling skills were practical and necessary. Now, based on what we identified as the needs, we started writing up the objectives. They said that the ROI objective was to achieve an ROI of 25% or more from the program. The impact was to reduce absenteeism to 5% 6 months after the program. Remember, we are writing smart objectives, and that's why we are making it time-bound as well. Application, we said counseling skills or counseling discussions need to be conducted in 95%. So we said counseling discussions need to be conducted in 95% of the situations when an unplanned or unexpected absenteeism occurs. Learning objectives, they needed to be able to demonstrate the use of counseling skills. And in reaction, we said that the program should receive a favorable rating of 4 out of 5 on need for program, relevance for program, and practicality of the program. We are not measuring trainer, how much rating does the trainer get. Yeah? We're not measuring how well do they perceive the training environment. We are measuring the most relevant and the most important things, which is, do they find it practical? Do they find it necessary? Yeah? and do they find it relevant? Now, how will we measure all of this? We measure reaction by using a reaction questionnaire at the end of the program. Learning, we measure it by doing a skill demonstration during the program, and this would be assessed by the facilitator. We measure application by a follow-up questionnaire, which will be sent to the participants to measure the frequency of the discussions 3 months after the program. We measure impact by monitoring absenteeism records for 6 months. And finally, we'll calculate ROI and show the cost versus benefit. Right? This is how we achieve program alignment using the V model for any program. Right? Okay. Priya, you had a question.
Till the time, I just want to understand 25% is of $10,000 or the cost on training?
Cost on training.
Cost on training. Okay.
Cost.
Whatever amount has been invested on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
25%. 25% within 1 year, is that the period which is
6 months.
In 6 months. Okay.
6 months. Yes. Sorry, Priya, you had the question. You had a question.
Yes, Elvis, that many a times we've seen that the HR expects great results from us, but then
Right.
they are not giving, they are not as invested. And when they are not invested, we cannot give them the kind of results like it happened with me, since I do a lot of language training programs.
Right.
And those are 40 hours long programs, which could take 4 months,
Right.
close to 5 months. If the
Okay.
HR is not invested, then I don't think we should even promise anything.
So
because
okay.
many a times the HR, they will say that, okay, we want all this, and I have learned it the hard way. So I tell them that very clearly, that if you're looking for this result, then I want this data. And then when we are talking about sales, we actually need to get a little bit into process of theirs, or their results, or where are they going wrong? Because many a times operations is where the things can go haywire, and then they blame the trainer, saying that since the training was not impactful, that's why it hasn't yielded us results. The whole point is that your operational inefficiency was not in alignment with what the results should be. So I think we just wanted to understand, what are your views on this?
No, I agree with you, Priya. Okay? And that's the reason why we talk about this entire program alignment process. Right? We're talking about what are the objectives that we are defining. What is it that we are expecting as performance change? Now, for that performance to change to happen, as we start, and all of this is even before we deliver a program or the project. Remember, this is just step 1 of your 12-step process model, which was aligning your programs with the business. We've still not gone to the point of identifying the right solution, which is our step 2. This is step 1, aligning a program to the business. This is achieving business alignment. When we do this, we very categorically identify what will have to change, who will need to support what. And if those factors are not being fulfilled, then it's right up to us to showcase to them, saying that, hey, here's what we said would have to be done. This didn't happen. So here's your cause for program failure. Something that we had flagged off right at the beginning. Right? If the conversation was about improvement in sales and processes need to change, if the processes are not changing, then it's clear to showcase to them, saying that we talked about changing process. The processes have not changed. If you don't do something different, don't expect different results.
Very true.
Right? So that's all of that clarity is what we're trying to achieve right at the beginning. And that's one of the reasons why we lay so much of emphasis on aligning your programs to the business. Right? Okay. Vijay, you had a question, right? Before I get to Anand's question.
Yeah, in fact, thank you so much. I wasn't having a question. I just wanted to clarify certain things, but then it's been clarified while you were giving explanation.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Anand, I see your hand raised. Anand, you're on mute.
Mr. Mistry, could you explain to me these application objectives? How could you apply this in this case study?
How could we apply this in the case study? We are talking about any time an unplanned absenteeism occurred within the organization. Did their immediate supervisor have a discussion with them or not? Okay. And how we measured it was by sending across a follow-up questions to the supervisors, asking them to identify whether the conversations happened or didn't happen. And we did that 3 months after the program.
So in that impact, you should have 95% of the this questionnaire should be answered by the staff. That's what you put 95% there.
No, we are saying that. So if I have a team, and let's say there are 100 unplanned absenteeisms happening within my team, did I have discussions 95% of the time?
Okay, understood now.
Understood. So we are giving the supervisors also some amount of leeway, saying 1 or 2 may get missed here and there, and we don't want to make it a very stringent process that is difficult to follow and apply.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Right. So that's how we achieve a business alignment with a program or a project. Okay? Now, if you look at these reaction level objectives, like I said, we are looking very specifically and measuring what's the need, relevance, and practicality of the program. If we are to create any kind of feedback for a program or a project, and we want to make that feedback executive friendly, what we need to start identifying is things that really matter to the executives. They want to know whether the program was relevant for them, whether it was important for them, for the participants. They want to know whether the participants intend to use it. They want to know whether the participants feel the program will help the organization or not. These are the things that your executives want to know about the program. They are not too bothered whether the food was great, whether the learning environment was right, whether the trainer was good or not. Most of our programs will check on things that are not very executive friendly. Like Snehpal was telling us earlier, you have people who will say, oh, I get a 4.8 out of 5. But that's not really what your executives want to see. They don't care whether the trainer was rated great or not. What they care about was, did the trainer deliver the results that caused a positive impact for the organization? Did the participants think that the program was of value for them or not? Right? If you want to measure ROI with your level 1 data itself, you should be asking questions such as what knowledge or skills have been improved. You could ask the participants about what actions do they plan to take based on their improved knowledge and skills. Okay. With very senior executives, if you're doing a program with very senior executives, you can ask them what business measures will be influenced. You could even ask them what's the monetary value of impact that the program will deliver. You could ask them what's the basis for this estimate, and you could also ask them what's the level of confidence in that estimate. All that will also help you identify what's the ROI that the program is going to deliver. Okay. Now, how do we calculate ROI? We've been talking about ROI, and so on. Okay. How do we calculate it? We have two formulas to calculate ROI. That's a BCR and your ROI percentage. The BCR is nothing but benefit to cost ratio. It is measured as program benefits divided by program costs. When you look at ROI, that's a return on investment. It's measured as a percentage. The formula to calculate that is your net program benefits divided by your program costs multiplied by 100. If we look at it with an example, let's say the cost of a program is 4,25,000 and the benefits delivered from the program are 7,50,000. Your benefit to cost ratio is 7,50,000 divided by 4,25,000, and your ROI would be 7,50,000 minus 4,25,000 divided by 4,25,000 multiplied by 100. That would give you a BCR of 1.76:1 and a ROI of 76%. That's a formulas to calculate ROI for any program or project. Now, Lastly, let's get into how can we forecast the ROI of a program or a project. Okay. In the chat, could you tell me what's your experience been with forecasting ROI? Okay. You could just write A, B, C, D, or E. Tell me what's your experience been with forecasting ROI. Whether you've done it, you've not done it, so on. Okay, Tina says it's been suggested. Anjani says I've tried. Priya says it's been suggested. Victor says you've been successful, wonderful. Anand says he does it routinely, wonderful. Preeti says it's been suggested. Wonderful. Excellent. So we have a mixed group here, right? Which is great. Okay. So we have a pre-programmed forecasting model as well. Okay. The model starts with by identifying what's the reaction for the program going to be. Okay. We anticipate what's the reaction for the program going to be. We estimate the amount of learning that would be needed to make a program successful. We then estimate the steps and the actions the participants need to take to make the program successful and how much of success will they have with applying those. Okay. We then go about estimating the change that it will have on the business measures, and we then convert that into data we then convert that data into monetary values. Okay. And as we do that, we estimate cost of the program, we calculate the return on investment, and we also anticipate intangible benefits. Right? That's the model that we follow. Okay. Now, your inputs to forecast could be any previous experience that you have had with the same or similar programs. Your inputs could also come from suppliers or designers who have experience in similar or other situations. It could come from estimates that your suppliers or designers could provide. It could also come from estimates that your SMEs could provide. It could also be an estimate from your clients or sponsors. It could also be an estimate from your target participants. Yeah. These are all estimates in terms of what's the change that we expect from the program. Right? Now, the steps to perform your pre-program forecast. First, we use the help of experts to create your program objectives. Yeah? We go around defining the program objectives very clearly, and we use experts to do this. Yeah? The experts could be any of the ones that we spoke about in the previous slide. Yeah? And the input that will come to us from any of these experts is something that is going to help us develop the objectives. Once we've done that, we estimate the reaction. We estimate learning, we estimate application, we estimate the impact improvement. And once we've done all of that, we apply a confidence factor to it. Yeah. This confidence factor is going to adjust any errors that we have had in our estimates. We then convert impact into monetary values, and then we annualize the data. Then we estimate the costs, we calculate the forecast ROI, we identify potential intangibles, and we show variations with different assumptions. Okay. The estimates that we have taken for reaction, learning, application, and impact improvement, we look at those and we see what would happen if we had taken a higher estimate, or what would have happened if we take a lower estimate, right? And that's the variation that we show with different assumptions and communicate those with your decision makers. Right? These are your steps to your pre-program forecast. Now, measurement targets and benchmarks. Okay. For your level 0, we recommend that you have data for 100% of your programs and projects. For level 1, we recommend that you have reaction and planned action data for all your programs and projects. We recommend that you have learning data for 80 to 90% of your programs and projects. We recommend that you have application data for 30% of your programs or projects. We recommend that you only measure business impact for your top 10% programs or projects. And you measure ROI only for the top 5% of the programs or projects. Okay? This is what we recommend. And these are the best practices that we recommend. Okay? Based on the survey that we had done along with the association talent development, this is what we see that is happening. Okay? Organizations have input information for about 90 to 100% of their programs. They are capturing reaction data for about 80% of their programs. Learning is being measured for 70% of their programs. They're measuring application for 49% of their programs. They're measuring business impact for 37% of the programs, and they're measuring ROI for 18% of their programs. This is what we see happen throughout the industry at the moment. This is what we are noticing learning functions do across organizations and corporates. Okay, so remember that process improvement is the key that we are looking at with this measurement process. Okay? We recommend that you continue to evaluate and measure what's the outcome that the program's delivering. You optimize the results and improve the efficiency of your programs and projects, and all of that will lead to additional funding for your programs and projects. The payoff for doing all of this is it helps you justify and defend the budgets that you write up for your programs. It aligns your projects to the business needs and helps you create a direct impact on the business outcomes. Okay? The ROI methodology and process also helps you show contributions of selected programs and projects, and all of that helps you earn the respect of senior management. Okay? Doing all of this helps you build your staff morale and improve support for your programs and projects. This also helps you enhance design and implementation processes. It also helps you identify inefficient projects that need to be redesigned or maybe eliminated. And it also helps you identify successful projects that can be implemented in other areas. And finally, most importantly, it helps you earn a seat at the table. Whenever conversations about learning programs, projects are happening, it helps you get a seat there. It helps you get involved to define and decide which program stays, which gets eliminated, what needs to change, what needs to come up. When it comes to measurement, and when it comes to showing the value of a program or a project, remember, hope is not a strategy. Luck is not a factor. Doing nothing is not an option. Okay? If you are being asked to measure and showcase the impact of a program or a project, remember, it is too late to start measuring. You need to be proactive and you need to start the journey right now. You need to start the journey even before you design the program. Any questions that you would have?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Moshe.
So many times it so happens that, when you have the hard data indicator, which is actually quantifiable, even the company, they give those data. But when you look at the intangible benefits, like even the employee morale or customer satisfaction, so those things kind of are very difficult from the organization also to provide you with those kind of things, because you're not able to precisely give some kind of a numerical values to those indicators. So what are your thoughts on how I would say rather the soft data indicator can be used to track trends, this kind of things?
Right.
How can we go about doing that?
Okay. So when it comes to soft data, okay, again, Let me go back and bring up this slide. Okay. When we are working on programs or initiatives that create an impact on the soft data measures, we start by identifying what needs to change. If they want to see an improvement, let's say in customer satisfaction, how are they measuring customer satisfaction at the moment? It's about how will we write or what. Okay. So the question that I generally ask them is, I ask them, what will have to change for them to say that the program is successful? Or what will have to change for them to say that customer satisfaction is improved? And that variable is something that will tell us how they measure those software values. And we use those measures to categorically identify and measure those trends and showcase those improvements in those software values.
Okay. So we need to, in the objective itself, we have to be very clear and very precise in terms of what is their outcome that they are looking at, the final destination.
Yes. Okay. Because customer satisfaction for you may mean one thing, and it could mean something very different for me. And
but
if we are not,
do you also give a kind of a benchmarking? Because when you look at the hard data, it's easier to give the benchmarking against your competitors or maybe other industry standards. But when it comes to soft data, how do we do that? Is there any kind of a benchmarking that can be done?
Yes, benchmarking can be done for any of those values, whether it's hard data or soft data. There are a lot of studies that you will find available on the internet that talk about all of those. So yeah, it can be done.
Okay.
Yes, Divya, you have a question.
Yes. So your program says you can hire an expert or have someone specifically to collect data and analyze it. For a freelance trainer, someone like me or who is in the start of their career, what would be your suggestion or advice to get started on measuring ROI or get started with this entire ROI feature? How can we get started?
Okay. So if you would like to get started, one of the first things that I would recommend you to do is start aligning, start doing this, start achieving your program alignment. Okay. Identify why you're doing that program. Once you've identified the why, then start looking at what performance has to change, and then design and deliver your learning solution.
Okay.
That will automatically help you. Yeah. That will automatically help you create those objectives, and as you create those objectives, you automatically know what needs to be measured and tracked.
Okay. So is there any stages that we do this, or do we start applying these on all our training programs?
I recommend do this for all your programs.
All
I do it for all my programs that I deliver.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
Right. Now, in addition to that, if you would like to learn all the 12 steps in the process, okay, in more detail, we do offer a lot of learning programs as well. We do one-day trainings on the ROI methodology. We do two-day trainings. We do a 5-day certification program and so on as
well. Okay. Thank you. We'll start doing that.
Yeah. Ranjani, you have
I had one comment about the same issue. So today I had a meeting with a client, a face-to-face meeting, and the HR had come to Goa. She is based in Bombay. So she had come down to Goa. The unit is in Goa. And she said the factory manager also will be there. So when I started the discussion, I started with all the payoff needs and business needs, asking them like, what is the need? And the factory manager was totally clueless why this particular soft skill training is being done. So he was thinking that it is the HR's idea, and he didn't give any inputs about it. So the issue what I find is that many of the factory managers feel that, or the whoever is the plant head or things like that, they feel all this behavioral training because of the past experiences that this is not something that is going to lead to any change. So basically, they have given it up as hopeless, and they feel that this is just an exercise we are doing because HR has been always doing it as calendar programs or something. How can we like sensitize them that we can create change? Means any kind of tips, like what can we, are there, we show them data, or what do we show that is because it discourages us from asking this question only when they have this kind of approach, no?
Right. So Amay, instead of getting discouraged from asking those questions, okay, I would recommend that you ask them a different question. Okay? You ask them what's their pain area. Okay? What's the problem that is worth solving for them? Okay?
I tried that. I asked them what are the issues, what are the pain areas. So then they said nothing, everything is going fine. We just want things to improve. But then they are not telling what needs to improve.
Right. So that's
where
we'll have to. Right. That's where we'll have to probe them a little more to understand to understand why they think differently. Okay? You'll have to understand why is there a disconnect between the HR and the factory manager, where the HR thinks that a behavioral training is going to improve something, whereas the factory manager doesn't think that way.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ranjani, yes, you have a question.
Yeah. My question is, for certain problems or challenges, training may not be the only solutions. Probably it could be like their environment, tools, their management, leadership. It could be anything else as well. So what if they come up with a problem or a need which we feel training is not the only solution, but it needs some other change as well?
Right. So if that's something that you identify while you're aligning your program, okay, to the business needs, we call that out and we highlight it to the stakeholders, saying that only training is not going to work out. These are the other things that will need to change for your performance to enhance, for your business impact to be delivered. Okay? And that's the reason why we are starting off with identifying business needs and what performance needs to change around it. Okay? And that is what will tell you, saying that, okay, if I want to see a change in, let's say, my sales numbers, okay, just people having better negotiation skills is not going to work out. Your product is not being sold because the product is defective. You probably need to reduce the errors with your product or the issues with your product. So while we train on negotiation skills, it will only have X amount of impact. If you want to see a Y amount of impact, you probably need to change something else as well. Right? Something to that effect. That's the reason why we recommend that you do it this way.
Right? Understood. Yeah. So in that case, you will say along with the training, this and this also has to be catered for the change to be visible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Very fine. Yes, Vikram, you have a question.
Yes, Harry.
Yes.
According to you, just rough figure, how would you give the ratio for the actual training versus this review cost?
Training versus review cost. Okay, so the evaluation cost, yeah, for a program or project runs about, say, around the 10% range of the cost of a program. Okay? So we usually recommend that you factor about 10% of the budget towards evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
I know we have gone 5 minutes over time. I'll take one last question from Anand before I hand it back to you folks. Yes, Anand, you had something to share.
My question has been answered. Mr. Francis has asked a question, so it's been answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Great. Okay. Thank you everyone so much for your time and patience today. Here's the QR codes if you would like to connect with me or if you would like to connect with us at the ROI Institute India. I shall hand it back over to Divya and you folks back. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Mistry. It was an amazing. So far, the trainings that, sorry, the IAAM Tuesday learning sessions we have had been about more of creating content for the training and training delivery, right? And this is, I think, the one of first trainings where, first sessions where we are actually learning about ROI and why it is important. I think more than doing it, now we all understand why calculating an ROI is important for us all. And I'm sure we will be taking baby steps though, but definitely this is a great start for all of us. And we are going to be, this is a new skill we can, I think, very soon add on our resume also, saying that we can calculate ROI and help clients actually understand the importance of the training session. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful session, and thank you for all the participants for being here. And such amazing questions coming from Snehpal and Amey and Victor. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your contribution to. I think your questions helped us get more clarity on the topic and learn a bit more. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mistry.
Thank you. And as promised, I will send out the case study to everyone. And I would just request you to connect with me. You have the QR code on the screen. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a hi, and I will share the case study with you. Wonderful. I will share the case study with you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
so
Mistry. Good night.
All right.
Thank you,
everyone.
Divya. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bina.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Divya.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Divya.
Thank you.